Hello from Hawaii. Those of you who are meeting me for the first time, I am Kim from thatsweetraw.com and welcome. I've been thinking about the idea behind this video for a while. I've been noticing that many of my students understood what a clean onset was, but they had a hard time creating them and creating them consistently. So I became really interested in why we tend to lean on specific onsets. So whether that is a glottal onset, that push sound at the beginning of the sound, breathy onsets, almost as if you've got this huge H presence right before the note, fry, which always reminds me of Britney Spears. Oh, baby, baby. And that's probably showing my age, but that's the reference that I always gravitate towards. Or a slide onset. Kind of climbing up to the note or scooping up to the note when maybe you don't really mean to. And each of these can be brilliant when you're choosing to use them for stylistic purposes, right? You want to enhance the stylistic choices. You want it to be more interesting. You want to add it for kind of color and spice. But if they are a crutch and you use them because you actually can't create a clean onset, that's when you might want to go deeper. That's when you might want to investigate a little bit. So if you do tend to create onsets that you don't want or that you find are fatiguing on your voice, and you find it hard to create clean onsets, going straight into it, gliding into it. They're also called glide onsets or simultaneous onsets. We need to look at why. Because as with most technique, if we don't deal with the why behind whatever is blocking our ability to express ourselves or our ability to deliver a sound efficiently, we don't get much movement. We don't see much progress, and we get a whole heap of frustration. We're like, why can I not change this, right? And I remember when I was first introduced to what onsets are, which is really the way that we start a note starting on a vowel. So when we are using words that have consonants, it's all kind of covered up there. But when we have a line that starts with a vowel, it becomes glaringly obvious how we are starting those notes. And I remember being really excited that finally, I was going to figure out the solution to the strain that I was experiencing, the fatigue that I had been experiencing, especially when I was belting, when I was adding power. And yes, the fact that I was often using glottal or harsh attack kind of onsets was definitely a factor in my fatigue, but there was a number of different things, forcing forward placement and twang. I was experiencing a lot of tongue tension, which was also connected to the idea that I had to control my breath. All of these were factors that were kind of adding to the fatigue, but glottal attacks were definitely part of it. But trying to get rid of my glottal attacks felt almost impossible. And that's because I didn't know how anyone could belt something with a clean onset, because that was how I got those notes, was with that little push that I had always done. And now I've seen this time and time again with my students. So they become fascinated by the idea of clean or glide onsets, but then find it difficult to put them into practice, especially when they're trying to add power. And I realized that there was a really important element at play that I haven't seen anyone talk about, which is the reason why we're adding these onsets in the first place. So glottal, breathy, fry, slide onsets, if they're a default that you are finding hard to shake, actually tell you a story about how you feel about the note that you are trying to approach. And more importantly, the thought about your ability to actually hit it. So let's look at breathy onsets first. Again, this is if you don't want one for a stylistic effect. This is a more of a dip your toe in the water approach, right? And it comes from this fear of vocalizing. It's this hesitation. So you start with the breath before you actually bring the chords together. You start with the breath before you allow your voice to shine. And this is often connected with perfectionism or worrying about what others will think. Maybe you're worrying about being too loud or being heard at all. Glottal attacks, however, are a way of pushing for the sound. They're like a nudge or a jab. And I find that this is connected to people who tend to overachieve or strive for things, or believe that they need to work hard or push to get the note that they are going for. When we're looking at fry and slide onsets, again, if you don't want them for a stylistic effect, it's usually coming from this desire of wanting to climb up to a note or a fear of hitting it directly. So instead, you're going to gradually make your way up to the note. And any onsets where you start the note from your vocal cords, or what we feel is like from your throat before adding the air, can be a sign of feeling afraid to make a loud noise immediately, and instead kind of wanting to test the waters before adding fuel to it. So how is knowing this about ourselves actually helpful? Well, it means that you can understand why your body keeps gravitating towards onsets that are not clean, right? When you're trying desperately to tell it to stop. So those of you who have been slaving away practicing and still struggle to get consistent clean onsets, I hope that this brings a sigh of relief and compassion and understanding to your next practice session. Until we deal with our fear or our belief that this note is hard, the undesirable onset will be incredibly difficult to transform. So, how do we even approach that? Well, one of the best ways that I've found for singers to deal with insecurity around notes that they tend to push on or hesitate on is to actually stop thinking about them as singing at all. The idea of singing for many singers is really heavy with rules, and even the word or the concept of it actually makes them try harder for it. And as soon as we think about singing or belting, the perfectionist in us starts to arc up, or our people pleaser might start to analyze what everyone might think if we crack or if we fall flat. So the voices get really loud and we get up in our heads. We're not really focused on what it is that we're wanting to create, how it is that we're wanting to express it. When I ask singers to make sounds, however, everything changes. And it's even better if I can give them an image or an idea to focus on, which kind of distracts them from obsessing over the pitch. So a lot of these pushing comes from this fear that you're not going to hit the note properly or like bang on, those of you that are worried about being flat or about being sharp. And it also can distract from obsessively listening to the sound initially. We want you to be in the process of creating the sound rather than listening for it, because that's, again, kind of pulling you away from the process of creating it. So here are some ideas. Here are some notions. If you are creating breathy onsets and you really wish that you could stop that, think about speaking the note around about the pitch that you want to hit. Depending on the where it is in your range, speaking it is going to be really different. If it is low enough down, if it's in your speaking voice, that's going to be really easy to do. If it's higher up, you need to think about speaking in a cartoon character voice, or if you have ever told a story to a child and you've put on a high voice for the princess or queen or whatever it is, cartoon character, that is what you'll gravitate towards if you are wanting something that is sweeter, or what some might say as head dominant. If you are gravitating towards creating glottal attacks, you want to approach the note by calling out. So instead of thinking of this idea of belting, because glottal is usually associated with adding power, you want to think about calling out something or wailing out something. I find that adding an N to the front of it, N, and then dropping it is really helpful. It's a consonant that people don't tend to push a lot on, so you can add it and then start to drop it, just to give you the sense of what it feels like to call this out versus belting it. The other thing that can be really helpful is adding an emotion like surprise. Oh, means that you're less likely to, push it with that glottal. For those of you who are trying to shake vocal fry or slide onsets, I want you to start imagining throwing a dart at a dartboard. So the whole like climbing up to it thing is the challenge here. We want you to be able to go cleanly straight into it. The idea of speaking or calling, depending on the weight of what you were wanting to create, can be helpful for this too, but it's really about going straight onto that note. So even if you're a kinesthetic learner, actually using your arm can be really helpful for that so that you're not sliding up to it. So those are just a few ideas or images that you can explore for yourself to just kind of get the ball rolling. But the most important thing that I hope you leave with after watching this video is really compassion for why it might not have been so simple to just sing with a clean onset, just having that directive, right? And the more compassion and curiosity and patience that you can bring with you into your practice, the smoother and faster and more fun everything becomes. That I know for an absolute fact. So thank you for watching. If this video gave you some insight, a light bulb moment, and you know other singers in your life that would love to know this, please share it with them. And if you have reflections or questions that you would like to share with me, I love hearing from you. Pop a comment below, let me know. And if you want more insights and tips and ideas from me, ramblings from me in your life, please sign up for my email list. I will leave it below, the link to sign up, so that I can jump into your inbox and share more with you. Thank you for being here. I will see you back here again soon.